Thomas Bryant, there he goes.
Westbrook does a great job of one-handed, left-handed pass. Works on his side. He doesn't
Trent Jr. has checked in. Warriors stay with the same 5 starters. And then Steph Curry hitting the wing jumper. Yes, drops it in that 3. Oh, Curry, little split. Steph through it. Steph with the lift. So Steph Curry, beautiful beginning. And turnover. Point down. Free throw in the 3-point play. Curry right down the lane. How about that?
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Fantasy Firebox here. I am Tony Jigsaw Cutillo, as always, on Win Daily Sports, covering the weekends, Saturday and Sundays. I am about an hour late. Let me tell you, I have the evidence on my hands. For those of you who don't know, I coach a youth soccer team, and I remembered at 8:30 it was my turn to line the 11v11 soccer field. So I rush out, go line and field. Long story short, I'm back here. Obviously, if anybody's ever lined a soccer field, it doesn't always work right the first time because you have a ton of parents using it. You have a ton of other people using it. So I had to fix it. I had to get it. Long story short, it's done. And now I'm here. My man Adam already checking in. Adam, avid follower. Adam, yes. Adam, tremendous Sixers game I went to last night was the clincher, the closer. Now we look forward to the playoffs. And today, it's a gorgeous day. A beautiful day. I'm on the East Coast, right outside of Philadelphia, and I'll tell you what, today is one of the days where you want to sit out back, you want to do some yard work, maybe you want to cut some grass, cut some firewood, do a little outside projects, but sit up and have that first beer for the season. For me, it's a Lonnie Kugel Summer Shandy. When I break out the Summer Shandy, it's ready for summer. So this is what I decided to do. Last week was a little different. First show, first weekend, first 2 shows. It was tremendous. Had a lot of good interaction with a lot of good people. We gave a lot of good picks out, a lot of good value. As always, I'm not going to set a full lineup. We're going to talk about cores. We're going to talk about values. But today I want to preview some NFL as well because this is going to be like kind of a closeout for NBA DFS. And right now, NBA DFS is such a crapshoot, right? Because we just have no idea what's going to be going on from a night-to-night basis, who's going to play, who's going to rest, how many minutes are going to play, going into the tournament, going into the playoffs. So I want to focus primarily right now on MLB for the first half of this show. We're going to talk about the 7 o'clock matchup games. It's a nice big slate tonight, a lot of good value, a lot of good arms we're going to talk about. So I kind of set some guys up. And I want to start previewing NFL because this is going to be an all-around fantasy show. Just so you guys know, I label it the Fantasy Firebox because I like to talk all different aspects of fantasy and the big 3 for me, okay, which is NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL. So obviously we're going to start ramping up the NFL talk, but today I just want to profile some quarterbacks because the quarterback carousel in the offseason and still with all the implications right now, we really have no idea what to expect. So it's going to be a very interesting draft coming up, especially for those who do early drafts as well, because I know a lot of people do early drafts, which I'm not a big fan of, but it is good for us as analysts because we could grab that ATB value, ADP average draft position value for us for our drafts that we do usually in August and very, very early first week of September. But let's get right into the Major League Baseball site. Now, what I did was I kind of flipped it up a little bit today, and I did that because I don't like to go game by game, player by player. I think it becomes very stagnant. I got a lot of energy. I want everybody to give me their energy back as well. So what I did was I put people that not necessarily, this isn't a lineup that I'm playing, but I put these names in there so I would remember in the sense that we could just talk about those specific players and the attributes and why I like them as values and core plays. So let's share the screen right now. We're going to, obviously, this is all about DraftKings, right? We already know that. We're going to talk about values and core guys for DraftKings. Now, there's a lot of good pitching matchups tonight, and it's all going to depend on what you want to pay up for. We talk about that all the time. Do you want to pay up? Do you not want to pay up, right? So we can look at this right now as a whole, and we already know. And again, this is the 10-game, 7 o'clock slate, and I do that because, listen, it's 10 o'clock, it's 10:30, so I want everybody to have an opportunity to watch this, to listen to this, and try to use some of this information, and not all of it. Listen, I will say this. A lot of people, what I love is I have a couple of people that I talk to every single day, asking what I think about their lineups, and I tell them what I'm doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to change, but it's good to have a different mindset, a different point of view, especially when there's so many options, and see what other people are thinking, right? The logistics of DFS and fantasy football are tremendous, and that's what I like about it. There's so many difference of opinions out there. So let's dive right into this. Obviously, Trevor Bauer is the number one guy, and all I'm going to say about Trevor Bauer, okay, before I get into who I like. Trevor Bauer was my preseason pick to be the number one pitcher in Major League Baseball fantasy. He was my drop-down number one guy for DFS. I told everybody I was taking him number one. Everybody said, wow, really? That's a real, for Trevor Bauer? Yes, I was taking him as my number one. I'll tell you why, right? He played on a team in Cincinnati, didn't give him a lot of support, right? So a lot of the games he either had no decisions on or lost, he probably should have won. So, going to a Dodgers team that are absolutely dominant, there was no reason to believe that he wasn't going to get a +4 or +5 in a win total. So for me, you're talking about which most likely should be a 20-game winner in Trevor Bauer. He's going to go longer in games. The swing and miss factor is huge with Trevor. And when you're playing on, Trevor Bauer, we all know too, he's a little bit of a wild card, right? He's a guy like social media, like a guy who likes to talk a lot. So most of those guys are usually egotistical, right? So when you get on a winning team, and you know that the World Series, is in your viewpoint, and obviously they're going to have to hit better in order to do that. But at least, gives you that extra confidence builder. It gives you that cockiness. And with that cockiness, what comes? More wins. So that's why Trevor Bauer is my number one. But let's look at a couple guys who I'm going to pick because, again, anybody can, Trevor Bauer, Aaron Nola, you don't know what's going on with Donnie's day to day, right? But Ian Anderson, 9,200, not a big fan, only because he doesn't hit my lucky 13 number. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, and Milwaukee actually is swinging the bat pretty well. Now, Adam Wainwright. I'm going to go right now, right off the bat, to Adam Wainwright. And the reason why I talk about Adam Wainwright is because we have seen this in St. Louis over the years, right? Where you get the pitcher not at the end of his career, but at the later stages of his career that is reborn. We've seen it in Chris Carpenter, right? For all you people, baseball fans, remember Chris Carpenter at the tail end of his main exit out of Major League Baseball was to be an unbelievable pitcher and veteran leader for the St. Louis Cardinals. So, I look at Adam Wainwright and I say, wow, Adam Wainwright has turned back the clock. He really has. And this is simple. Okay. You just look at, you take in perspective what he's been able to do over these last 10 games. Right? Listen, it's simple. DraftKings points, people. Look at the innings pitched. Look at the strikeouts. Right? 8 innings pitched, 5 Ks. 9 innings pitched, 8 Ks. 7 innings pitched, 10 Ks. Right? So you're consistently above my number 13, but you're going with a veteran guy in Adam Wainwright who knows how to pitch. Now, going up against a San Diego lineup today, Obviously, at San Diego, a lot of power in that lineup, right? But when you're a veteran, you understand how to pitch. And I'm still going to go with Adam Wainwright as one of my players. At 8,800, he's under 9,000. He's got that good value threshold. He goes deep into games. Look at the stats. 3 out of the last 5, he's above 7 innings. That's a good sign. He has been able to keep his pitch count up and still not be fatigued. He's hit the 100 pitch mark 3 out of the last 4 games, and that 4th is 93. So he is showing no signs at all of slowing down. So on this slate, when you don't want to pay up for a guy like a Trevor Bauer or an Aaron Nola who could be inconsistent, right? You can look at a guy like Adam Wainwright. Now, another guy is German from the Yankees. And if you guys follow me, I talked about German a couple weeks ago. And I talked about him because he hits those X's when it comes to strikeouts. Now, again, he's still trying to find his groove, still trying to find his way. But if you look at what German's been able to do, for a Yankees team who started hit, he's still over 6 innings pitched, 7 innings pitched, 1 game of 5, okay, against Houston. But look at the point total for DraftKings. Look at your DraftKings fantasy points, right? And when I'm just going to start saying fantasy points, you guys should know by now, I'm talking about DraftKings. But the biggest thing is look at the consistent strike total. 6, 6, 6, 6. Not to make fun of the devil here or talk about hell, but 4 out of the last 4, it's 6 strikeouts per game. Right? So he has been able to get in the inning 6, 7, 5, 6, which means he's consistently getting that quality start. He's playing for a good team whose offense is starting to really start lighting it up because, listen, Giancarlo Stanton has been an absolute beast, but the thing is, it was health with guys like Aaron Judge who are finally starting to come around, right? LeMahieu has been fantastic. Gleyber Torres has been in and out of the lineup, right? But you're going up against a Baltimore team that, I'll tell you what, their swing and miss rate is above 70%. That's a big number. So when you're talking about a swing and miss rate against a guy who throws a lot of heat, listen, German is a really good value today at under 8,000. So against Baltimore, no matter what, I know they're playing at Camden Yards. I don't look at the home and away a lot, only when we talk about Colorado. But I will like Domingo German at that number, only specifically because I know I'm at least going to get 13. He's going to at least give me 13. Okay, which means my baseline for these pitchers is 13. That's why I talk about it. So anything above and beyond is huge. So, we're talking about value, just so you guys know that, right? I'm not going to base a 13 number on Trevor Bauer who I'm paying 10,800 for, right? I'm talking about my under 9,000, under 8,000 value plays. I look at 13. So if you hit that number 13, that's my baseline, and everything above that is just the bread and butter, right? So if German goes out there and strikes out 3 more guys and gets 4 more outs, I'm sitting at 20. And I paid 7,900, which allowed me to get some more big lumber into the lineup. So that is, for me, that's the way I go. So I'm going to go right now, just so everybody knows, the way I'm going to look at this is I'm going to look at 3 pitchers today, right? And these are pitchers that are values. And again, I like Adam Wainwright. Not necessarily a value, but I think he's a really good play. He's consistent. He's a veteran. Even against San Diego, I'm going to go with Adam Wainwright. I like Domingo German. I do. I like the matchup against Baltimore. And another interesting guy. Now, he's 8,400. I understand, right? But Luis Garcia for Houston. And I like betting against Texas in the sense of, from a pitching perspective, because they are always in the bottom thirds of strikeouts when it comes to offensive production. So I already know that they're going to swing and miss a lot. And Luis Garcia, listen, again, he's an interesting individual because this is a guy, bullpen guy, comes up, put him in a lineup. All of a sudden, we sign him a contract because we need him to be the guy in our rotation, right? So what I will say is innings pitched 5.45, not tremendous, okay, but he's striking out at least 6 batters per his starts. And today against Houston, I think he has every opportunity to strike out at least 6, right? So I'm actually looking at Luis Garcia popping at maybe a double-digit strikeout total today. Right, I'm not looking at 0-3. I'm not looking at that, but his ERA is pretty low for Major League Baseball standards, and he's hit 90 plus pitches the last 2 games, which means he's able to go deep if he has to. If even, listen, 92 pitches at 4.2 innings shows that his control may not have been there as well, but he still struck out 8 guys. So the more Luis Garcia pitches, or Luis, I'm sorry, the more he pitches, the more command he gets, and going up against a team who Joey Gallo is day-to-day, so we're really not sure if he's going to play, who's one of their big lumber bats in that lineup. I think this is a really good spot for Luis Garcia. And Houston's really swinging the bat well, and they're playing at home, so they don't have to worry about all that crowd noise about the cheating scandal, right? So there's a lot of things that I like about this play today. So again, 3 pitchers we're going to go with today. Under the top guys, listen, if you want to pay off for Bauer, I understand. I wouldn't mind putting Bauer in there. I'm just trying to help you guys out with some value that I look at that's under that number. So again, Wainwright, Garcia, German, 3 guys I'm looking at to give me above that 13, lucky 13, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo, lucky 13 baseline. And, hopefully get you some double-digit fantasy points so you don't have to pay up for a guy maybe you don't want to get some big lumber in a lineup. So let's look at bats. We're going to go right to bats. And I threw some guys in here already. And this is not my lineup, just so you guys know. Not my lineup. I just threw these guys in here because these are the guys I want to hit on. And then we're going to go through the list, and we're going to go to under 3,000 values, which is my favorite. I love that because that's where you get some gems, right? And there's already a gem that I have in there for you guys at 2,300 that I really like. So today, when we look at stacks, you can look at Philadelphia against Toronto. Again, you can look at, I'm not, listen, K doesn't scare me for Toronto. He really doesn't. I think that the Phillies, even though, away, I think that they have a lot of potential to score a lot of runs today. Alex Boehm's been hitting the ball hard, just been unfortunately getting into outs. He's been hitting the ball at people. So his value is very low. Okay, so actually today, when you look at that, I think he's still at 3,200. I so believe. 3,200. I think, again, it's a good number for Alex Boehm in a lineup that is going to produce runs. Guys like Gene Segura is a good play. You could stack a Segura. You could stack a Alex Boehm if you want to pay off for Bryce. But the one guy in the Phillies lineup, and I don't spend catching money. Right? So I'll be honest with you guys. I never really spend catching money. But JT Realmuto at 4,600 to me is a good number. A couple days ago, I talked about Aaron Judge. And I talked about Aaron Judge because he was at 4,500 because he was slumping majorly, right? So I was like, that number's telling me something. Just like you betting guys out there to say the line's telling me something, the value tells me something as well. And Aaron Judge, I'm like, you know what? This guy is too good to be held down for that long. So if I'm going to sit there and take a risk on Aaron Judge or a guy that's slumping that's normally 5,200 to 5,600, if I'm going to get him for $1,000 less, that's when I'm going to pounce. I'm going to pounce because it's low risk, high reward, right? So any other guy you get in a lineup for 4,500 is more he's more susceptible to that low number production. And Aaron Judge is more susceptible to high number production. So that's what I look at. And today, that guy for me is Realmuto. Coming back, off a little knee contusion, you want to call it, right? But going up against Toronto, going right into a lineup, giving some energy to the Phillies team. Listen, he's not just a catcher. This guy, he does it all. He does. He is not a catcher when it comes to offensive production. He is a pure hitter. Right? Absolutely. So I think this is a good spot for JT Realmuto. I think he offers tons and tons of value for 4,600. Now, my man Adam checking in wants to ask about Rhys Hoskins. Here's the thing about Rhys, and people kill me for Rhys because I'm not. Everybody knows I'm not a huge Rhys guy, right? 4,700 for Rhys. Now, he's in that same kind of mold. The thing with Rhys, though, is he is so inconsistent. But again, Adam, you mentioned Reese and you look at his numbers and you're talking about 3 of the last 4. He's 7, plus. He's 7 plus. But he was getting you 19 at 4,100. He was getting you 12 at 4,100. So, I like that number for Reese lower, around that 4,000 to 42 range, because I want to take that $500 and I want to throw him towards the back end, and I want to get a better guy at third base or shortstop where, I want that power, because I think there's a lot of first basemen. Like the other night, before, he was day to day, I said it was a Joey Gallo night. Joey Gallo at 3,800. Right, Josh Bell, 3,600. They're guys that have the same potential as Reese Hoskins for $1,000 less. I'd rather go with them all day. Now, I know the pitching matchup is there, but you know what? I'd rather go with a Gene Segura. Because I know a Gene Segura is going to be able to do a lot more than Reese Hoskins. I'm not going to have to rely on the power swing or the power bat, right? So if you just look at, Philly as a whole and you go to Segura, he's 4,700, the same value, right? But if you look at Segura's numbers and you break it down, now, yeah, he has 2 zeros, trying to prove me wrong here, obviously, but he has more potential to me as a 330 hitter, and to be able to get on base with a walk and a stolen base, to be able to bank up your point total. So I would if you're talking, would I rather start Segura or Reese? I would go Segura, only because of where he bats in the lineup, because he's in a lineup to where, he's going to have the ability to score runs. And if we're talking about a stack, okay, he's just coming, it's a guy who's always going to be able to give you constant points. And that's what I really want. So I would definitely lean towards Segura before I went with Hoskins. Now, breaking down some guys that I threw in the lineup. So I know we always talk about cores, right? So I'm going to give you 2 core guys to me that I'm looking at for this 7 o'clock slate. Number 1 is Tim Anderson. If you're not a Tim Anderson fan, I don't know what to tell you, right? This guy absolutely does it all. He really does. Okay, so I really like Tim Anderson, and listen, when we talk about pitching matchups, Mike Minor stinks. He stinks. Mike Minor absolutely stinks. Okay, so I am not worried at all about that, Mike Minor. So Mike Minor to me is a full-on onslaught of stack potential for the Chicago White Sox. And as you'll see, I have a couple guys in the lineup that I'm looking at as value plays for that stack. Now, Tim Anderson is a guy who checks all the boxes. Tim Anderson does it all. Now he's going up against a guy, Mike Minor. Doesn't matter right or left. Tim Anderson hits everybody. I mean, look at 3 out of the last 4, he's in double digits, man. He just does it all. And he hasn't even stolen a base in the last 5 games. So think about that, right? He hasn't even stolen a base, but he's consistently getting you double-digit hits, right? That's what you have to look at. Okay, he scored a run in each of the last 5 games. He is consistently in double-digit hits, 2 for 4, 2 for 5, 3 for 5. 1 for 3, but again, he gives you the walk, which is still a point, right? He doesn't strike out a lot as well. So here's a guy with a 845 OPS. He always gets on base. He's in a lineup that's really swinging the bats well, and going up against a matchup in Mike Minor, who's probably not going to make 4 innings. So for me tonight, Tim Anderson is one of my guys in my core. Any other guy, this is another stack you have to look at, because Chachin for Colorado absolutely stinks. He's terrible. He is. He's absolutely terrible. And they're playing in Colorado. So this is a red stack, absolutely 100%. And Castellanos, who's been unbelievable at third base. Listen, this guy is an absolute monster. Okay. And here's the good thing about Castellanos that I love. He's a power hitter, but he doesn't rely on the home run. The last 2 games, he went 2 for 4. He never hit a home run, and he got 10 and 12 DraftKings points. Why? Because he walks, he puts the ball in play, and again, he hits to all fields, which is huge. Now you're going on the Coors Field against a very inferior opponent on the mound in Chachin that I think they will absolutely obliterate. So guys like Jesse Winker is absolutely a play. Castellanos for me, though, is, I know he's 6,300, but again, If you're not paying 10 for Trevor Bauer and you drop down to a guy like a German, who I talked about at 7,900 to get you those strikeouts, now you have that extra $600 to be able to pay up for a guy like Castellanos. So for me, the core is Anderson and Castellanos today. That's what I'm building around again. And now we're going to look at value. Okay. And you know what? I'm going to throw Real Muto in my core too. Let's do that. Let's do a 3-guy core because I know he's only 4,600, but I think this is a good JT day. Okay. So my core I start off with is Castellanos, JT Real Muto, and Tim Anderson. That's what I'm rolling with. Now, let's get into some values. That's the biggest part here because everybody wants to know value plays. I love value plays. Guys ask me all the time, what's the value? Who you got under 3,000? Who you got 3,500, right? So I love those value plays. Pavin Smith, again, Arizona, 3,700. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I'm going to tell you why that I like Pavin Smith and I like anybody on Arizona because Joe Ross is another guy who can get hit. Right. And the reason why is Joe Ross throws a lot of fastballs, throws a lot of heat, a lot of 2 and 4 seamers you get from Joe Ross. And he's not always in control. So that to me, when I'm looking at a power hitter and I'm looking at Smith for Arizona, now again, he's only 3,700, but you have to look at what he's done. He is, you see these zeros in there? See those zeros? Right. And as his value drops, I'm going to pounce when he's playing up against a pitcher, like I said, that's going to be, very susceptible to the mistake that Pavin Smith is going to be able to drill. It doesn't necessarily be home runs. Here's a guy, the lumber that I'm talking about. He does a lot. Run score, doubles, okay? He does multi-hit games. So you just look at those numbers, 7, 2, 3, 14, 12. Again, when we're talking about 3,700, right? But I'm expecting from Pavin Smith today a 14 or 12 performance for 3,700. Like, the other day was Joey Gallo day. Today, I think it's Pavin Smith day. So I like Pavin Smith from Arizona. I like that play against a guy, like I said, in Joe Ross, who, listen, this guy just, he breathes mistakes on the mound. So I look for Pavin Smith to make him pay a couple times in this game. I can see a 2 for 4 night with maybe a double, couple runs scored. Couple RBIs, a run scored, giving you that 12 to 14. So I think that's a really good value play right there. Then we're going to we talked about the White Sox stack, right? And Larry Garcia is another guy. Again, and this is why I want to keep this box up here for a second. And I want to re-explain something. Or I want to explain something to everybody. Look at those numbers. Right away, this is the mistake a lot of fantasy players make. The first thing they do is, this guy bats 213, he stinks. Right? It's the first thing you see. You pull this box up and go, this guy's terrible. 213 batting average, no home runs, 12 RBIs. What is he doing for me? Again, number one, $2,800. Under 3,000. That's the Mendoza line for DFS, right? He's under the Mendoza line in DFS at 2,800. He's got a really good matchup again, right? This is the Mike Minor effect, right? So and he's playing home, and I'm not a big home, but again, the White Sox behind the crowd you got to take everything in perspective, right? But this guy, look at what he's done over the last 10 games, and this is just constant production. 6.5057, right? Take the 0 out. So if I told you, again, you want to pay out for Trevor Bauer at 10-8, no problem. Maybe you want, like our guy Tulak. Again, this is a good spot. Tulak, he gives you those picks and pivots all the time. Got the aces all the time. Brian Tulak, Win Daily Sports. Check him out. A lot of great personalities. Listen, check out Win Daily Sports and check out all the fantasy personalities we have. Listen, again, the Fantasy Isle again the other night, a show where we do interviews. It's not we, I should say, but the Fantasy Isle, that show, Warren Moon the week before, Marshall Falk. We give it all. We give it all here, and we are legit. So check us out, whether it be premium picks, whether it be our free cheat sheets that we run from time to time. We have contests. We're on Sirius XM Radio every weekend, 5 to 7. Our leader, Jason, running the show, which is awesome. But all I can tell you, windailysports.com. Go check it out. And sorry, my allergies are killing me. On all social platforms, we will not let you down. So again, $2,800. I'm looking at 5 to 7 points. If I can get 5 to 7 points for Luis Garcia at 2,800, I am in. And now against a really bad pitcher, maybe because if you're batting 7th, 8th in the lineup and you could actually get on base and you could score some runs, maybe you can get double digits for 2,800. You just never know, but he's a value play to me. I like the value. So I like the value stacks. How's that? And the reason why I say that is because when you look at it as a whole, you take that number one guy, and what you do is you metal him down with two inferior value guys in a sense of inferior numbers. So if I'm going to take Tim Anderson at 5,000 and I can back him up with a guy like Leury Garcia at 2,800, now what do you have? $7,800 for two players. If Tim Anderson is going to get me 15 and Garcia, maybe he can get you 8 to 10, or you're talking 25. Listen, you can't get a pitcher sometimes at 7,800 to give you 25. So think about that. Think about the math and think about the numbers. So here's another great guy, Starlin Castro. Now, everybody remembers him from the Cub days. I get it, but he is a consistent DFS performer that doesn't cost you anything, right? Doesn't cost you anything. Here's a guy's 11-game hitting streak, right? You see it. He has been able. Now, I just lost it the other day. I'm sorry. So as soon as I say 11 game, I'm forgetting what over at the plate last night, but that's okay. What I want to show you is 3 out of 5 games in double digits. And look at his numbers. They don't fluctuate. Value doesn't fluctuate. 29 to 3,300. Now he drops down to 31. Why? Because he only had 4 points last night. Okay. But you know what? Again, a guy that can fill up the stat sheet for under, now he's not under the Mendoza line, but he's right above it, 3,100. So for me, again, these are the guys I like to look at. I like to fill some values in, right? So if you're looking for a third baseman and you need some value after you get your core guys, Starlin Castro is a guy for 3,100 that could give you some decent point potential. He's got double-digit point potential. That's the thing. He's at least going to give you 4 or 5, right? But the thing is, he's got double-digit potential where he could give you double digits, and that's huge. You get 15 for a guy 3,100, and then Trevor Bauer that you paid for gives you a 40, man, you're cashing. So you have to look at that, right? You have to look at that. So Starlin Castro, to me, really good play today as a value play. We talked about Anderson Castellanos. Here's another guy. Ados Garcia for Texas. Now, I talked earlier about Texas being a swing and miss team, but Garcia has having a monster year. And again, Garcia and Gallo get no DFS love, 0. And I know why, right? They're big lumber. And when you talk about a guy who's big lumber, you talk about a lot of strikeouts. But Ardalis Garcia doesn't strike out a ton. Right? If you strike out once a game, that's fine when you're swinging a bat, but he's been able to bat almost 300 while still striking out once a game, which means he's putting the ball in play a lot, right? Here's a guy who just had a 3-hit game 4 nights ago, right? So he's consistently doing things to give you fantasy production, and that's what you have to look at, right? And for 3,300, it's a no-brainer to me. It's a no-brainer. And again, I don't even have to look at the pitching matchup, right? So here's the thing. When you're talking about values, not really look at the pitching matchups that much. I'm not. I'm going to be honest with you. What I'm looking at is what have they been able to do? What have they been able to do over the past 3 to 5 games based on what their DraftKings value is? And that's exactly what I'm looking at. So Garcia to me tonight, 3,300. I think it's a really good play. Value play. Under 3,500 gives you the offensive firepower. You tag him up with a guy like Castellanos, who's 6,300. And man, I'll tell you what, I think you're going to have a good night. So Garcia is another guy that I like. And here's the secret sleeper, man. All right, we talked about guys that you can lean on at the higher numbers for your stack, like a Tim Anderson. But then we also talked about a guy at your core who could be your sneaky cheap guys, your inferior value guys on that stack who you could plug in. Andrew Vaughn, to me, is he's ripping the cover off the ball. He is. He's ripping the cover off the ball, right? So if you look at his numbers, okay, 22, 9, 16, dude, 2,300. Right? 2,300. Do you really, and here's the thing you got to realize too. Okay, it's number one, it's the Mike Minor effect again, right? So poor Mike Minor's getting killed. But it's a Chicago team that likes to score runs, likes to swing the bat, that could be without Jose Abreu, right? He's day to day. It tested negative for his concussion, right? But he's day to day. So we're not sure. So that could be the difference of Andrew Vaughn going batting seventh or eighth to batting fifth, right? That's a big deal. So you already know at 2,300 that you're probably going to get decent production. But now you're talking about for 2,300, you may be able to get a number 5 hole guy to basically double that production. Sign me up all day. Sign me up all day. Jigsaw's in. Sign me up all day of the week. 2,300, Andrew Vaughn. Love that play. So you can get a nice sneaky sack for the White Sox of Tim Anderson, Luis Garcia, and Andrew Vaughn. And look, 2,800, 2,300, that's 51 plus 5. That's 10,000, 3 guys. And if you look at their point production totals, your baseline of maybe a 6, a 10, and a 15, man, you're getting 31 points for 10,000. I'm taking that all day, because you usually have to pay 10,000 for one pitcher to hopefully get you 31. You're paying that for 3 guys to get you 31. I like that, because the bats, how they are not consistent from a day-to-day basis. So you really want to get those 5-tool players that could be able to do a lot of damage behind the plate, right? That's what you want to do. So let's go here. Let's look at another guy who I consistently like. We're going to go under the Mendoza line, right? Let's go under the Mendoza line before we swing on to a little NFL talk to close us out, because I want to start talking some NFL to get this in. Because, listen, let's be honest, it's going to start closing out for NBA. Not a big deal. So, David Dahl. I liked David Dahl when he was a Colorado Rocky, but David Dahl, I think, is another guy that gets no love for Texas, right? 2,700. Look again, I'm just looking at no zeros, right? That's all I'm looking at. Doesn't give you any zeros. So that's the thing. So if I'm building a lineup, and we all been there, right? You start with your pitchers, you start with your core. Okay, so you start with your pitcher, start with your core, and you start filling in the slots. And you're like, I got 5,000 left for 2 guys. But I really want that $3,800 value. But who can I? Well, 2,700, David Dahl. Throw him in there, man. Throw him in there. Get you 3, 4, 5, but the potential to get you 10. Again, the biggest thing with MLB DFS is you want to nix out the zeros. That's all you want to do. You want to nix out the zeros. Whatever you could do to not give you guys zeros is the way you want to formulate your lineup at the back end, right? So how do I not get zero? Because, listen, you saw a $2,500 guy, but he can have zeros the last 5 games. Okay, you want to start a guy at 2,700 that at least going to give you 3, 4, or 5. So that's what you have to look at. So David Dahl is another name that I really like. And I'll tell you what, again, against Ian Anderson, and I know Ian Anderson's not a blow-away pitcher here. Okay, again, don't look at this 165, but Jackie Bradley Jr. always has these games where he has the ability to really knock it out of the park for his value, and he's always under 3,000. I mean, look, you see a 16 right there against Philly for 2,600, right? But he's also 3 zeros in a row, right? But again, 3, 2, 2, 2, right? You see constant points and another 0. So he's due for a nice night. So I for 2,600 to throw in at the end of your lineup, again, it doesn't hurt at all. It doesn't hurt, because one of your guys that's in your core is going to pick up the 4 points you might not get with Jackie Bradley Jr. But if Jackie Bradley gets you 10, that's going to be the difference of what you do when you talk about cash or non-cash, right? So hopefully I gave you guys some values right there. You can watch this back. Look at I'm a big value guy. But again, I'm going to go core of Tim Anderson, Nick Castellanos, and JT Realmuto. If you don't want to pay up for guys like Trevor Bauer and Aaron Nola, again, I give you 3 guys: Adam Wainwright, Luis Garcia, and again, Domingo Germán. Guys that can give you a streamlined start to get you decent innings pitched and strikeout totals to at least help you pad your stats so you can add your lumber at the very bottom. So let's start with the DraftKings talk right now. And, hopefully you guys can get some good lineups and make some money like we all want to do here on Win Daily. But let's dive in for the last 10 to 15 minutes for some NFL talk, because I don't know about you, but I'm jonesing. I'm jonesing for some NFL plays. I really am. So let's dive right into the quarterback sector, because I've been dying to talk some NFL, right? Because let's face it, when basketball's over, we're going to need a fill-in. Okay, listen, I love talking MLB DFS, but I'm not talking an hour on Major League Baseball, right? We need to fill in some fire. We need to fill in some fire. Let's talk post NFL draft 2001 quarterback rankings. Now, right off the bat, we look at a guy, it's always going to be Patrick Mahomes, right? I don't think we need to even touch the Patrick Mahomes effect. I don't think we need to touch the Josh Allen effect. I don't think we need to touch the Kyler Murray effect. But what I will say is I am very intrigued about Kyler Murray taking that next step to possibly being the number one overall fantasy quarterback this year. What Arizona's been able to do out there, I'm excited. You cannot help but be excited for what Kyler Murray, not only did he do last year, okay, but what he will be able to do this year. And listen, I'll tell you what, every year there's a guy that jumps up, right? Every guy that jumps up and says, we're going to take that top spot. And it was Lamar Jackson a couple years ago. And yes, it's always been a mobile quarterback because, Kyler Murray will be able to give you points with his legs, right? And he'll be able to give you that game where he only maybe throws for 200 yards and one touchdown. He's going to rush for 70 and possibly give you a touchdown in the mix too. So I like Kyler Murray as breaking up as that number one guy this year. But let's look down and let's look at some guys that I think are preseason are ranked really, really low and a question mark, right? We got to look at question marks. Where is Aaron Rodgers going to be, right? Where is he going to be? What is that? What does that say for his value, right? So again, that's why these are preliminary talks, right? So we think about what, does he go? I still think that he does not make it back to Green Bay. I know there's a lot of Denver Bronco talk, but think about Denver Broncos. Just think about the domino effect if he goes to the Denver Broncos and what he's able to do for that receiving core out there with guys like Cortland Sutton, guys like Deshaun Hamilton, guys like Jerry Jeudy, right? Think about what he's going to be able to do for those guys. Noah Fant. I mean, I'll tell you what, if Aaron Rodgers went to the Denver Broncos, think about how far up the draft charts Noah Fant would rise. When you just look at what he's been able to do, I mean, all you got to do is look at Robert Tonyan and see what Aaron Rodgers was able to do with Robert Tonyan. Can you imagine what the freak of an athlete like a Noah Fant is? Noah Fant all of a sudden becomes a Darren Waller type tight end with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be interesting. I for one, I predicted he goes to New Orleans and he's going to the Saints. I think that's a big home for him. I really do. I think, Sean Payton is a very egotistical guy. Sean Payton is a guy who just loves to win, and he loves offensive firepower. So because he loves offensive firepower, I think he really tries to make a strong play for Aaron Rodgers, would definitely take him up the draft board, right? So Russell Wilson's another one. We know Russell Wilson is still in Seattle. Let's see what happens. Russell Wilson, started off last year as a fantasy MVP, and then he kind of leveled off, right? He leveled off a little bit. So, I have to wait to see guys like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott from injury. You have to be in love with what Justin Herbert did. Obviously, Herbert wasn't even expected to be the starting quarterback last year until the freak injury with Tyrod Taylor, a puncture in his lung, which, God, unbelievable. What's the odds of that? But Justin Herbert showed you how much of a stud he can be, right? So Justin Herbert, I always say San Diego. I'll consistently call him San Diego. I know they're the LA Chargers, but some things just roll off the tongue, right? They just roll off the tongue. Lamar Jackson, very intrigued, right? So Lamar Jackson, what does he do? What he does is he starts the season off as a, top number one overall quarterback, and he consistently fell about 15th or 17th on a weekly basis that he finally started to turn it up towards the end last year. So what do you take of Lamar Jackson? But let's look at a couple value guys already early. Number one, Trevor Lawrence. And again, I understand he's a rookie. I understand he plays for Jacksonville. But let's think about what Jacksonville did last year under guys like Gardner Minshew. He comes in to an offense that has a lot of good pieces. DJ Chark, obviously, it's that go up and get kind of receiver that you want a young rookie to have, right? You want a young rookie to have. Laviska Shenault. Laviska Shenault is going to be one of the most underrated fantasy wide receivers in this upcoming draft. This guy does everything. He is a very shifty receiver. You know who he reminds me of? Think about this. Laviska Shenault reminds me of a guy named Percy Harvin. And when Percy Harvin was not injured before he had the hip issue, Percy Harvin did everything. That's the kind of receiver I think Laviska Shenault could be. And when you're a rookie and you can't always go long, you're going to consistently look for guys across the middle or guys on bubble screens or guys that could take the ball from A to B. Like, that's why I said Jalen Waddle was the perfect guy for a guy like Tua, because he can extend the play. Laviska Shenault can extend the play. And he's a guy that understands now to come back for the ball when your quarterback's in trouble and to be able to do those screens that you don't get called for, okay? In football, there's no flag. So Laviska Shenault, I think, is going to be a really good safety valve and blanket for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. And that's why I think Trevor Lawrence could really be. I mean, listen, this is a quarterback carousel this year. We don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson. We don't know, like I said, with Aaron Rodgers. We don't know the health of Dak Prescott, right? We know Mahomes and Allen are going to be up there. We know Lamar Jackson should be, but he's still a question point. So you got to look at guys like a Trevor Lawrence, and how about a guy like a Matthew Stafford, who Matthew Stafford got overlooked every single year because he played in Detroit and they never won ball games. It's as simple as that. But now he goes with one of the most influential offensive geniuses in Sean McVay on a Rams team. Okay, that number one, I'm going to be glowing when I get to talk about Cam Akers, because I loved Cam Akers last year, and I'm so high on Cam Akers this year, and we'll talk about that when we get to the running back perspective. But what Matthew Stafford comes into in that offense, I mean, come on. Like, you take him out of Detroit, and number one, you put him, he's with Matt Patricia in the last couple of years. Very frustrated, never protected. The offensive line never protected Matthew Stafford, got hit so much. So now this year, he comes into an offensive system under Sean McVay that is only going to highlight his talents. Even a guy like Tyler Higbee is a guy that, that you're going to look at from a Matthew Stafford standpoint. Josh Reynolds, you're going to look at, and that's why I like to, obviously we're going to talk about Robert Woods, right? Robert Woods is unbelievable receiver. His numbers are only going to benefit. Cooper Kupp, his numbers are only going to benefit from Matthew Stafford. Think of those two names that Matthew Stafford already comes into. Josh Reynolds, who played very well. Tyler Higbee, Cam Akers. Listen, this is going to be Matthew Stafford's year for me. To bump up. Everybody used to wait on Matthew Stafford in fantasy football drafts. I'm telling you right now, you are not going to be able to wait on Matthew Stafford this year. People are going to scoop him up early, and rightfully so, because I think he's that talented. And another guy I want to talk about is Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia's own. I know I'm a Philly guy, but let me just tell you something. Jalen Hurts, 3 out of 4 games, was a double-digit quarterback. 3 out of the 4 games when he started, he finished in the top 7, respectively, and was the number 2 fantasy quarterback overall in Week 14. So I will tell you right now, or Week 14, I should say. I will tell you right now, Jalen Hurts is a top 7 fantasy quarterback this year. Top 7. Make no mistake about it. Not top 10, not top 12, not top 15. He's a top 7 guy. Now, again, I come out, you're going to get to learn Tony Jigsaw Cutillo with his bold predictions. And everybody always said bold predictions. But here's the thing. I won't say I'm always right, But I do, you know, my buddy John Coker, who's been invincible for a little while, but he'll be back, and I will have him on a guest on this show. That, you know, we were doing fantasy shows together for years, and he'll always say, "I don't agree with you, but somehow, some way, you always pick that guy." Jalen Hurts for me, if he can stay healthy, is a top 7 fantasy quarterback. Last year, I argued that Stephon Diggs was going to be a top 7, possibly a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. Everybody told me I was crazy. Everybody told me that I'm lucky if he hits 15 to 20, right? But again, you have to look at the makeup. Look at what Jalen Hurts walks into. Right, we're going from Nick Sirianni, who you can say whatever you want about the guy. He comes from an Indianapolis pedigree, right? That love to utilize the running back position with guys like Nyheim Hines, Jonathan Taylor, right? We already know this, and the way he's been able to do that, T.Y. Hilton, you know, Michael Pittman Jr., utilizing the tight ends, whether it be Trey Burke, whether it be Jack Doyle, right? I mean, there's so many different elements to a Nick Sirianni offense, and you have a guy in Dallas Goedert at the tight end position who's going to be a huge target for Jalen Hurts. You still have a guy in Zach Ertz, if he's still here, which will be a tremendous safety valve. But then you get a guy like Devonta Smith, who's the Heisman Trophy winner, that's going to cause attention. That is going to only help guys like Jalen Reagor. I was not a Jalen Reagor guy. I hated the pick. I wanted Justin Jefferson. But if you look at the way this offense is going to be constructed, right now, the reason why Jalen Reagor probably took a step back last year in his rookie year was because he had nobody to command attention for him. So he was the main guy. The attention now is going to be surrounded, number one, by Jalen Hurts' mobility factor, and number two, by a guy in Devonta Smith that can get off of coverage and that can find the soft zone and be able to take it to the house. That's only going to help a speedster like Jalen Reagor, and not to mention, they signed a guy like Kerryon Johnson, who he's only 23 years old. I thought got a raw deal because of DeAndre Swift. Okay, so he comes into the fold. You still have Miles Sanders, who for my money should have been a top 5 running back as long as he could stay healthy and get enough touches. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but you look at that 1-2 punch that you could possibly have, and then you have Gainwell who gets drafted in the 5th round, who does it all as well. So between Gainwell, between Miles Sanders, and between Kerryon Johnson, who I still say should make the team, it's early, Jalen Hurts has a lot of offensive firepower. So for me, for my money, there's a guy right there that's going to fit into that top 7 quarterback realm. So listen, we don't know what to expect from Joe Burrow. Obviously you love what they did in Cincinnati. You know, when you look at the Higgins, Boyd, and Chase effect, right? That, and the Joe Mixon. Listen, they did everything they could to make sure Joe Burrow has enough firepower in that lineup. Maybe Daniel Jones is able to do something now that they get a stud guy in Kenny Galladay. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I think Tua is actually too low on this list. And this is early. And again, this is just an ESPN list. I like to just go by. They have Tua ranked at 19. I don't think Tua is a 19th ranked quarterback. I know everybody says Tua stinks. He doesn't stink. Tua doesn't have, the arm to go deep all the time. Okay, so you have to formulate an offense around Tua. And a full year of Myles Gaskin, as long as he can stay healthy, and you get him 17 to 21 touches, okay, he's going to be a guy out of the backfield. You drafted Jalen Waddle. You signed Will Fuller. You have Devontae Parker. You're giving this kid all the ability. And let me just say something, in closing about Jalen Waddle. The reason why I really like what Jalen Waddle did. What Miami did with Jalen Waddle. Last year, if you watch the Miami team and you watch what happened when Tua came into the fold, when Tua took over for Ryan Fitzpatrick, it wasn't guys like Devontae Parker, okay, that started to become the number one guys. It was guys like Mike Gesicki and guys like Jeremy Grant. Do you know where Jeremy Grant played? He played in the slot position. You know why Jeremy Grant was so fantasy relevant under a guy like Tua? Was because he was a short pass guy, he was a possession guy, and he was a guy that was able to run in space. That's exactly what they did with Jalen Waddle. What they did was they said, we need a guy, we need a hot route guy, we need a skinny post guy, guy. We need a guy to get across the middle, a bubble screen guy that's going to be able to extend the play for Tua, to build on his confidence and build on his offensive repertoire. And that's what they did. And that's why I think Tua is going to be a really good play as a sleeper number 2 quarterback in your drafts that could, eventually become not only a week-to-week streaming option, but could be a legitimate starter as the year goes on and he starts to develop with those, I wouldn't even say it's a 3-headed monster. It's kind of like a 4-headed monster, almost a 5-headed monster, because if you go Fuller, Parker, Waddle, Gesicki, and Myles Gaskin, that's a pretty good offensive firepower right there. So I do like Tua. Adam checking in says Devonta Smith is going to be. Yeah, Devonta Smith, Adam, I'm with you. I do like his fancy potential. And again, I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of people sleep on, only because they're not sold on what Philadelphia is doing. So again, check them out. And again, that's what I like. We're on that show on that. We went 55 minutes. I plan to go an hour every Saturday and Sunday. We'll start to get there. Right, we'll start to get there. We're going to do some polls. We'll have some guests. We're going to bring some people in. But again, the best thing about this is you don't have to listen to this live. You can listen to this on replay. This is going to be on the YouTube page. It's going to be on the Win Daily Sports website, windailysports.com. You check it out. Get you ready for your 7 p.m. matchups tonight. And you can watch tomorrow. Fast forward to about 30 minutes in. And then what you do is you get to hear some NFL fantasy talk, get those juices rolling. And I'm going to cut up some audio from this as well. So, Adam, my man, thank you for checking in as always. My man Adam is always there. Does a lot of contributions as well when it comes to Heat Ratio Sports, which is, the company that I founded that has a ton of great voices there as well. So if you're looking for, local national perspectives, you can check them out as well. But we're talking today on fantasy. We're talking DFS. We're talking a little sprinkle of sports betting like we talk, and Win Daily Sports is the name of the game. So as always, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo here. Give me a follow at TCutillo23. Follow at Win Daily Sports on all social platforms. Number one, make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're downloading the episodes, and make sure you're interacting. And don't be afraid to throw our Discord chat in there. See, that's what we forget about the Discord chat. We have the public Discord chat where you can talk to every single one of our betting and DFS pros. They will get back to you. They're on there all the time. They're consistent. Listen, these guys are monsters. Let me just tell you something. These guys are monsters. They live, eat, and breathe numbers, which I absolutely love. I'm learning a lot. We're collaborating a bit. But again, check them out. And as always, everybody stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you back here tomorrow, 9:15. Set the alarm clocks. Get ready so we can talk about those 1 o'clock MLB matchups, and we can talk some running backs for NFL fantasy. All right, as always, everybody have a great day.